So Senator Clinton's wins among Asians and Latinos were really landslide wins. Was her outreach really that good, or did Senator Obama fail to do outreach properly?
Well, I have to say, looking at it from the inside, she did outreach really early to these groups, and I think it was very, very targeted outreach. I think they did look at who the leaders were in each of these communities, and they did get buy-in early on. So I think that they did a magnificent job, actually, of the outreach. I think that Senator Obama did do outreach, but I think it was late. For example, I'll bring up 80-20 again, even though I know you don't like that, Charlie. But they finally woke up to the fact that they needed to do something about 80-20 because they were getting creamed, you know, in the press with regard to that. And so they finally woke up, and so the week before the primary, Obama finally said he would give all 6 yeses to the questionnaire. But by that time, everything was all settled. So I think it's if you don't have the people with the experience, then they can't guide you to do the right thing. I mean, apparently he had some hesitations about certain of those questions, but somebody in the Asian American community could have helped him negotiate to change the questions that he had some little problem with. And there could have been a happier conclusion, but I don't think he had that experience to realize that.
I agree.
I have my doubts about the impact of leaders on communities. Ted Kennedy is probably the most popular figure we have, and Massachusetts has been for a long time, endorsed Obama, and Hillary won with room to spare. But in South Carolina, Obama took precinct-based grassroots organizing very seriously, bypassed the leadership structure, had a remarkable group of younger people working the grassroots for him, and he absolutely blew Hillary away. And the mystery to me, which my poor wife has had to listen to for the last 10 months, is why the Obama campaign, with 650,000 contributors, hasn't made the Marshall Gans approach to organizing its hallmark. Because he's a candidate and he has a campaign that's a natural for this kind of approach. And those of you who know Marshall know what he's talking about. Every precinct with a precinct captain, 6 block captains, personal contact with every single voting household. It isn't that you ignore the leadership structure, don't get me wrong. I mean, you work with those folks as well. But you focus on people. And Charlie, thank you for the phone banks. But maybe that's why we lost California by 2 points, because we were doing phones when. And in the 1988 campaign, thanks to Marshall, we organized half of the precincts, about 13,000. And folks, you could look at the vote totals, precinct by precinct, community by community, and you could tell almost immediately where we did the precinct-based organizing and where we didn't. So maybe it's my, Charlie, failure in '88 to do that kind of work, which, by the way, got me elected governor 3 times in Massachusetts, that has me so obsessively focused on this. But they did start late, Judy, on this thing. Somebody said to me proudly in the Obama campaign, well, we've got 3,000 precinct captains, most of whom have been recruited in the last month. Folks, this is a process of 7 months, 8 months, 10 months. It involves repeated visits to people over an extended period of time. It involves getting to know people in your neighborhood. It's not parachuting kids in with 2 weeks to go. The precinct captains have to be people who live in the precinct, look like the precinct, sound like the precinct, and vote like the precinct. And that just wasn't done. I don't know why, because it seems to me, as I say, he was his candidacy and he himself is kind of a natural for that kind of campaign, but they haven't done it, I'm sorry. Where they did it, in Iowa and South Carolina, I mean, they won big. They did not do it in New Hampshire. Hillary did not win in New Hampshire because she cried, believe me. It was because, for reasons I don't understand, the Obama campaign just didn't work those precincts, and there are only 500 in New Hampshire. Good Lord, Oprah pulled 8,000 people into a hall in Manchester, New Hampshire. So the people are out there, and you know, it may well be too late at this point for either of these campaigns to do that. But certainly in the final, no matter who it is, folks, the Democratic Party had better get serious about this kind of organizing.
Just want to add one more comment. I guess I slightly disagree with Governor Dukakis' assessment when it comes to the Asian American community. Because in the Asian American community, 2/3 of folks are foreign born. And this is an emerging immigrant generation. And what happens there is, from my work as community organizing, is that folks tend to listen much more to respected leaders than other communities, than more, I should say, assimilated communities. So as a result, the endorsement of, for example, Judy Chu or a John Chung, or on the other side, Wilma Chen or Ted Lieu, would mean much more than it would for other communities. So in a way, the grassroots here is actually about seeking out those leaders, those opinion shapers there. But that's changing, because obviously there's a new generation of Asian Americans who have to be reached through other ways, and these folks are very web savvy and very hooked on the internet. But so there are this is a community that's in flux, and I would hope that all the campaigns actively seek out their vote, because they're there and their numbers are growing.
I also agree with that.
A couple of things. First of all, I know a lot of the Vietnamese Americans. Most of them are Republicans. And give my best to Michelle Steele, please. And to me, when I deal with them, they're fighting among each other all the time. They don't like each other. They're different factions. You got the county supervisor just elected by the name of Wynn, and Van Tran doesn't like her. I mean, they're constantly fighting among each other. So I don't know how many have the influence. As far as the governor's position on grassroots, I got started in Republican politics 40 years ago by doing grassroots. I worked for the LA County Party, registration, tries to get out to vote, and what have you. Two things to understand. A, it's enormously expensive. It isn't cheap. They have a precinct operation. They have to be trained. They have to have material. They have to be told what to do. How do you just have a mob? The last time I did grassroots, I'm going to really date myself, but I'm going to make a point. Believe it or not, I was the LA County field coordinator for Dick Nixon's re-election campaign in 1972, and we recruited 24,000 volunteers to show up on election day. That's not the only time they did work, but we did. But it was enormously expensive. But because of Nixon and Watergate, they decided to make public financing into presidential races, and all of a sudden they put caps as how much you could spend in each state. And you know what the first thing the campaign managers got rid of when they realized they couldn't do it? Grassroots, because they wanted the money for television. And that almost got rid of grassroots organizing in presidential races. It's beginning to come back. But it is the offshoot of the so-called reforms that were done because of the scandals during Watergate.
I don't want to prolong this forever, but let me say very briefly. There is, however, an enormous difference between now and back then when Allan and I and others first started this grassroots stuff, and it's called the internet, folks. The internet is an incredible organizing tool, and it doesn't cost anything. Once somebody sends you $50 there online, you don't have to pay for literature anymore. All your precinct and block captains have to do is go down to Staples and buy paper. You can have 20 pieces of literature in the machine. I mean, you can get on their voting list, you can train them, you can call meetings. I mean, really, understand what I'm saying. The internet is not a way to reach voters, in my opinion. Maybe some people, not many. I mean, that's got to be face-to-face, particularly as the media becomes more and more dispersed, folks, and traditional advertising is less effective. But as an organizing tool, it's amazing. And since this kind of a campaign is largely volunteer-driven, it really now, I think, is the least expensive form of campaigning. But you got to do it.
In the final analysis, we have to give voters candidates who say something interesting and who matter. And to me, one of the great tragedies was someone who you know very well, a former senator from the state of Massachusetts, who ran for president of the United States. And if anybody can tell me what John Kerry's message was, what his argument was for getting elected, please let me know. Nobody's ever done that, but reporting for duty does not motivate grassroots volunteers.